The crisp white paper slid across the mahogany dining table, stopping right next to my untouched plate of turkey. My sister Megan stood over me. Her knuckles were white. Gripping the edge of the table, her breath came in shallow. Frantic gasps. Her wealthy future father-in-law had just issued an ultimatum. He needed undeniable proof that our family owned this Waxhaw estate by Black Friday morning. Or he was pulling the $150,000 for her wedding caterers. She was panicking. And as always, her panic meant I had to bleed. My father, Daniel, leaned over my shoulder, tapping a heavy gold pen against the paper. It was a formal property relinquishment form. Put your name on the line. Or you can sleep in the unheated gardening shed tonight. He said, his voice dripping with absolute contempt. You are not ruining your sister's future with your poverty and your delusions. This family is moving up, and you are nothing but dead weight. I swallowed the dry bite of food in my mouth. The dining room smelled like roasted sage and suffocating arrogance. I looked at the pen. I looked at my sister's desperate, furious eyes. I picked up my phone, completely ignoring the gold pen tapping inches from my face. I typed a single, precise command to my fleet captain: divert VIP Fleet Alpha from the Charlotte Hub approach to my Waxhaw coordinates. Clear it with air traffic control as an emergency executive diversion. I locked the screen and finally looked up at them. The countdown had started 3 years ago. Daniel was completely bankrupt. He had hidden it well, wrapping his financial decay in tailored suits and country club memberships. But the bank was foreclosing on this exact estate. I knew because I received the public notice alert. I also knew that if he lost this house, his ego would shatter. And he would drag my mother down into the abyss with him. So I bought it. I used a proxy limited liability company to purchase the property in cash. And I leased it back to him at a massive loss. I saved him from homelessness. I saved his pride. He thought the bank had simply restructured his loan out of pity. He had absolutely no idea his quiet, unassuming daughter was his landlord. Megan crossed her arms. Her diamond engagement ring catching the light from the chandelier. Sarah, my car lease payments are $2,500 a month. For each car, I have an image to maintain. I am marrying into a legacy family. And here you are, 32 years old, taking an Uber to Thanksgiving dinner because you can barely afford bus fare. It is humiliating. Just sign the paper. Stop pretending you have any claim to this family's legacy. Her wealth was a fragile house of cards. Those cars were leased under a failing shell company Daniel had set up right before his finances tanked. They were drowning in debt, suffocating under the weight of their own manufactured image. But toxic people cannot process their own failures. They have to project. They looked at my practical clothes and my quiet demeanor, and they saw the perfect dumping ground for their own financial terror. Bullying me was the only way they could feel rich. My cousin Ryan pulled out his phone. The camera flash blinded me for a second. He shoved the lens right into my face, broadcasting live to his social media followers. Look at her, Ryan mocked, laughing loudly for his audience. The black sheep of the family, still pretending to work in logistics. They'll us. Sarah, how many boxes did you pack today? Are you going to forge a deed to a cardboard box next? Sign the paper. You absolute loser. The family erupted into laughter. Daniel pointed toward the front door. You have 5 minutes. Sign the document relinquishing any future inheritance claims to this property, or you get off my land before dessert is served. I am done enabling your pathetic existence. They attacked with humiliation. They attacked with legal threats. They demanded tears. They wanted me to break down, to beg for my place at their table, to apologize for breathing the same air as them. I checked my watch. The air traffic control clearance buzzed on my wrist. I stood up. I grabbed my wool coat from the back of the chair. I buttoned it slowly, letting the silence stretch until it became heavy and uncomfortable. I looked at Megan, whose smug smile was beginning to falter. I looked at Daniel, whose face was flushed with whiskey and rage. Grab your coats, I said, my voice completely flat. My ride is here. Follow me to the lawn. Megan screamed. You are a delusional failure. You are actively trying to ruin my wedding aesthetic with your psychotic lies. Get out. I turned and walked out the back door into the crisp North Carolina air. I did not defend my career. I did not explain my trauma. I weaponized my silence. Danielle, Megan, and Ryan followed me out onto the sprawling back lawn, shivering in the cold, smirking and whispering to each other. They were fully expecting to humiliate an Uber driver. They were expecting a beat-up sedan to pull up to the gate. They walked right into the trap, their blinding arrogance shielding them from the storm that was currently ripping through the clouds above us. The sky began to shake. It started as a low, deep vibration in the chest. Then, the deafening, rhythmic thrum of heavy rotors tore through the quiet suburban evening. 3 sleek, jet black Sikorsky helicopters, VIP Fleet Alpha, each worth $15 million, crested the tree line. The wind from the rotors whipped the autumn leaves into a violent frenzy. Daniel's face drained of all blood, turning a sickly, ashen gray. Megan's jaw unhinged, her hands flying up to cover her face against the rotor wash. Ryan dropped his phone onto the grass. The 3 aircraft descended in perfect formation, touching down gently on the massive back lawn. The side door of the lead chopper slid open. My flight crew stepped out. Their uniforms crisp and immaculate. They lined up and offered a synchronized, razor-sharp salute. Captain Reynolds stepped forward over the manicured grass. Fleet Alpha secured and awaiting your orders. Ma'am, he shouted over the dying whine of the engines. Megan lost her mind. The false defeat kicked in. She pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling violently, and dialed 911. She screamed into the receiver. Yes, an emergency. A crazy trespasser just landed military helicopters on my family's property. Send the police, send everyone. She is trespassing. The local police arrived less than 5 minutes later, their sirens cutting through the night. Lights flashing against the black hulls of the helicopters. 2 officers ran onto the lawn, hands resting on their belts, demanding to know who was in charge of the aircraft. Megan pointed a shaking finger right at my chest. Arrest her. She is trespassing on our estate. She is ruining my wedding. I did not raise my voice. I reached into my bag and pulled out my tablet. I opened my company's encrypted legal portal. I handed the device to the lead officer. Officer, I said calmly, you are looking at the executed operating agreement, the deed of trust, and the state registry documents. I am the sole manager and beneficial owner of the limited liability company that owns every blade of grass on this estate. I am the owner. The officer scrolled through the documents. He checked his own dispatch terminal. He looked up his demeanor shifting instantly from aggressive to completely respectful. Everything is in order. Ma'am, my apologies for the confusion. I pulled 3 printed sheets of paper from my coat pocket. I handed the first 2 to the officer. However, officer, I would like to officially trespass these 2 guests. I pointed directly at Megan and Ryan. They are no longer welcome on my property. The officer turned to Megan. Ma'am, you need to vacate the premises immediately, or you will be arrested for criminal trespassing. Megan collapsed to her knees on the grass. By being legally banned from the property, her wedding venue was instantly voided. The failure of venue clauses in her vendor contracts would trigger by midnight. She had just financially detonated her own high society marriage. Her wealthy future in-laws were going to discover her bankruptcy before the sun came up. Ryan scrambled forward, leaving his phone in the dirt. Sarah, wait, look at all this. Are you hiring? I have a business degree, family loyalty. Right, we are family. I stared right through him. I looked at the officer. I do not know this man. Please ensure he is escorted off the property lines immediately. The officers grabbed Ryan by the arms and dragged him down the driveway. He whined and pleaded the entire way, his cries fading into the roar of the idling helicopter engines. Daniel stood frozen on the patio. He looked like a deflated balloon. The whiskey courage had entirely evaporated. I walked up the stone steps and handed him the final piece of paper. It was a legally binding 30-day notice to quit. I am firing you as my tenant. Danielle, I said, my voice steady and cold. You have 30 days to clear your belongings out of my house. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The realization of his absolute ruin locked his jaw. I turned to Captain Reynolds. Captain, head into the kitchen. Pack up the entire Thanksgiving feast. The turkey, the sides, everything. The crew deserves a good meal on the flight back to corporate. Yes, ma'am. He smiled. 10 minutes later, the crew loaded the silver platters into the rear cabin. I stepped onto the skids and climbed into the luxurious leather interior of the lead helicopter. I did not look back. I did not offer a single word of reconciliation. The door slid shut, sealing out the cold air and the pathetic sight of Daniel standing alone in the yard of a house he no longer owned. The helicopters lifted off, banking sharply toward the city skyline, leaving my toxic history shrinking into a tiny, insignificant dot in the rearview mirrors. I sat in the quiet, vibration-dampened cabin of my aircraft. I unboxed a piece of stolen pecan pie, taking a slow, deliberate bite. The sugar hit my tongue. But the real sweetness was the profound, crushing silence. For 32 years, I had allowed those people to define my worth. I had convinced myself that if I just proved my loyalty, if I just saved them from their own catastrophic mistakes, they would eventually love me. I thought buying that house would earn me a seat at the table. But toxic families do not want you to succeed. They need a scapegoat. Daniel's fragile ego and Megan's desperate need to perform wealth forced them to tear me down to survive their own lies. They did not hate me because I was a failure. They hated me because my quiet independence reminded them of their own suffocating dependency. They were drowning. And instead of asking for a life preserver, they tried to hold my head under the water so they could stand a little taller. We are taught that blood is a sacred bond, an unbreakable contract that demands endless forgiveness and infinite sacrifice. But that is a lie designed to keep victims chained to their abusers. Trauma does not earn you a family. It only earns you more trauma. I looked out the window at the sprawling city lights below, the empire I had built with my own hands, my own capital, and my own relentless grit. The peace I felt in that moment was staggering. It was the peace of a prisoner who finally realizes the cell door has been unlocked the entire time. If you are watching this and you are sitting at a table where you are the punchline, where your boundaries are treated as suggestions and your sacrifices are demanded but never appreciated, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I have 3 rules for surviving the people who share your blood but not your heart. Rule number 1, silence is the ultimate weapon against a narcissist. You cannot argue with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. They do not want a conversation, they want a reaction. Every time you scream, cry, or defend yourself, you are feeding their ego. You are giving them the power to dictate your emotional state. Starve them. Let your reality do the heavy lifting. When they demand a reaction, give them nothing but the cold, irrefutable truth of your own success. Rule number 2, never finance someone else's delusion. I bought that house thinking it was an act of love. It was actually an act of enabling. When you silently sacrifice your resources, your time, or your mental health to save a toxic person from the consequences of their own actions, you are not saving them. You are just buying them more time to hurt you. Let them fall. Let them feel the concrete reality of their choices. You are not a safety net for people who are perfectly willing to push you off the ledge. Rule number 3, true power does not announce itself. Meghan needed 3 leased luxury cars and a fake high society wedding to convince herself she mattered. Real wealth, real healing, and real power are built in the quiet. They do not need to shout for attention on social media. They do not need to dominate a Thanksgiving dinner table. When you finally stop performing for people who want to see you fail, you free up all that energy to build a life they could never even comprehend. I finished the slice of pie and wiped my mouth with a linen napkin. The city lights sparkled below, a vast grid of infinite possibilities. I was no longer the black sheep. I was the shepherd, and I owned the entire pasture. Who are you silently funding with your peace of mind? Just so they can afford to look down on you? How much of your soul are you paying in rent to occupy a space in a family that actively despises your growth? It is time to pack up your feast. Call your own ride and leave them in the yard. Let me know in the comments when you finally decide to walk away. Stay strong. And never apologize for outgrowing the people who tried to keep you small. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are watching this incredible multi-million-dollar takedown. And you are thinking, why on earth did she wait 3 years to drop the hammer? Why did a brilliant billionaire CEO let her father treat her like garbage while she was literally paying his mortgage? Why didn't she just kick them out on day 1? It is the most common question I get when I analyze these high-stakes family drama stories. And the answer is rooted in one of the most dangerous psychological traps a human being can fall into. I am talking about the slot machine effect, clinically known as intermittent reinforcement. Sarah was not stupid. She was incredibly smart in business, but emotionally, she was addicted to the crumbs of hope her toxic family threw at her. When a slot machine pays out every single time, it is boring. When it never pays out, you walk away. But when it pays out just often enough, a rare compliment from her dad, a moment of false vulnerability from her sister, you stay seated at the machine, feeding it your coins, hoping for the jackpot, Sarah bought that house because she thought she could purchase the jackpot of parental love. But narcissists do not pay out. They just take your coins until you are completely bankrupt. But let us talk about the absolute masterclass in financial self-defense Sarah executed when she finally woke up. First, we have the proxy limited liability company. This was the ultimate smart move. If you are dealing with manipulative family members, never put your wealth on display. Sarah used corporate layers to shield her assets. Scammers and entitled relatives hate details and paperwork. By hiding her ownership, she gathered intelligence on their true character without putting a target on her own back. Second, the silent execution. When the ultimatum was delivered at the dinner table, she did not argue. She did not try to convince them she was successful. Arguing with a manipulator is like wrestling a pig in the mud. You both get dirty, but the pig likes it. Instead, she let the physical reality of her wealth, the helicopters, the legal documents do the talking. She built an undeniable case. Finally, the eviction notice. That was the buyout. Sometimes you have to invest in your own freedom by legally firing her father as a tenant. She severed the financial cord that kept her tied to his dysfunction. She bought her peace of mind by enforcing a strict legal boundary that no amount of emotional manipulation could cross. Blood does not make you family, loyalty does. You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you. Even if you share a last name, trust is earned, not owed. If you are currently sitting at a table where you are being starved of respect, remember Sarah. Stop feeding the slot machine. Take your resources, build your own empire, and leave them in the yard. Have you ever had to enforce a massive boundary with a toxic relative? Drop your story in the comments below. Subscribe for more street smart survival strategies. And until next time, protect your peace and protect your assets. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are watching this incredible takedown, and you are thinking, why on earth did Sarah wait 3 long years to drop the hammer? Why did a billionaire chief executive officer let her father treat her like dirt while she was quietly paying his mortgage? Why didn't she just kick Daniel and Megan to the curb on day one? It is the most common frustration, but the answer is rooted in one of the most dangerous emotional traps a human being can fall into. I am talking about the slot machine effect, clinically known as intermittent reinforcement. Sarah was not foolish. She was incredibly sharp in business, but emotionally, she was addicted to the crumbs of hope her toxic family threw at her. Think about it. When a slot machine takes your money and never pays out, you walk away. But if it drops a few coins every once in a while, a rare smile from Daniel, a fake moment of sisterly bonding from Megan, you stay seated. You keep pulling the lever, hoping for the ultimate jackpot of parental love. Toxic families do not give you a jackpot. They just drain your resources until your soul is completely bankrupt. But let us look at the absolute masterclass in financial self-defense Sarah executed when she finally woke up. First, we have the audit strategy. She did not just buy the house under her own name and wave it in their faces. She used a proxy limited liability company. Scammers and entitled relatives rely on your emotions, but they absolutely hate details, paperwork, and legal structures. By acting as the silent landlord, she shielded her assets and audited their true character without putting a financial target on her own back. Second, building the case. When Megan cornered her at the Thanksgiving table with that ridiculous relinquishment form, Sarah did not scream or argue. Arguing with a manipulator is a waste of your breath. Instead, she let them put their threats in writing. And she let Ryan record his little video. She let them build the case against themselves while she quietly pulled up the executed deed and state registry document. She fought with irrefutable paper, not messy emotion. Finally, the buyout. Handing her father that 30-day notice to quit was the ultimate buyout. Sometimes you have to invest in your own freedom by legally firing him as a tenant. She severed the financial cord that kept her tied to his dysfunction. She bought her peace of mind by enforcing a strict, legally binding boundary. Blood might give you a shared history, but it does not entitle anyone to your future. You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you. Even if you share a last name, trust is earned, not owed. If you are sitting at a table where your boundaries are treated as jokes, it is time to pack up your own feast and leave them in the yard. Have you ever had to draw a massive financial or emotional line with a toxic relative? Drop your story in the comments below. Subscribe for more street smart survival strategies. And remember, protect your peace and protect your assets.